Clones, or palette swaps, are alternative designs of an existing asset that were used heavily back in the day to reduce workload while offering the illusion of variety. A strong majority of clones carry a similar moveset with minor, sometimes impactful differences that justifies the clone's existence. Monster Hunter also has a clone-like feature, with its subspecies that provide variance in combat, additional interactive content in the form of equipment, and even increasing replayability. My name is Monster Hunter, and despite Black Diablos' in-game classification, it is technically not a subspecies by lore standards. In today's video, I'll be discussing subspecies and why they should be present in all base titles. On its own, the term subspecies fails to narrow down the specificity each group claims. There are different variations that see changes to their appearance, combat, and materials. I'll refrain from covering variations like those in Frontier and Online, as well as title-exclusive differences like Apex, Deviant, or Risen. The more common versions are subspecies, rare species, and variants. Subspecies are classified as monsters that mutated in response to their environment. They showcase alternate colors and, while not true for every subspecies, are usually more aggressive as a result. Rare species are similar in concept to subspecies, but are definitely stronger and usually have different physical characteristics. Variants are rare monsters amongst their species, as they boast exclusive features found specifically in that individual or group of them. While these species sound like they all copy the mold of different color equals more power, there's nuance to these forms that allows them to stand out amongst their peers. One of the most notable instances is their abilities in combat. The base species of a monster has hit zone values, resistances, attacks, and mechanics we consider to be normal. A subspecies may retain these aspects with a slight twist to one or all of these aspects, but there are some who barely change at all. Great examples for monsters that barely change are Monoblos and White Monoblos, while monsters that do change are Agnaktor and Glacial Agnaktor. Monoblos and its subspecies, White Monoblos, are terrific examples of a subspecies that provide bare minimum change. Aside from color, they look identical, inhabit the same biomes, have the same mechanics, sport the same raw and elemental hit zone values, and are just overall the same monster. The only thing that truly sets them apart is their behavior in combat. Obviously, White Monoblos being the subspecies means that it acts a tad more aggressive than its counterpart. Its attacks deal more damage and are a tad faster with combos designed to catch you off guard. However, if you know how to fight Monoblos, then you're going to have an easy time handling White Monoblos. Agnaktor and Glacial Agnaktor differ from one another in their elemental properties, combat, and mechanics. Agnaktor's primary combat function lies in its radial physical attacks, burrow spamming, and heat beams. Its molten mechanic sees it having a tough exterior that softens when it interacts with a heat source from the player, its own heat beam, the environment, or by digging. Once broken, its hit zone values will increase, allowing it to receive more damage and not cause blade weapons to bounce. Not to mention that Agnactors are usually present in the area it resides, which act as nuisances due to their burrow attacks, fire spit, body blocking, and burning sharpness. These three aspects paired together can make hunting Agnaktor a bit of a challenge, as you have to pay more attention to its wide attacks, which parts are heated, and where you stand in the environment. Glacial Agnaktor acts as a mechanical mirror to its cousin. The signature Agnaktor heat beam can be fired straight or used as a sweep, but the sweeping beam is rarely used. Instead, Glacial will use the sweeping beam more often, especially when enraged. Another alteration is the Leviathan hip check, which is usually just a full body, cross-screen tackle, but this subspecies puts a spin on it by advancing toward the player from one angle before rotating its body to slap again. As I previously stated, the armor mechanic is flipped. Normally, Glacial's body parts are covered in snow and are softer on average, but become harder after interacting with the environment. Unlike the volcano, the tundra, where Glacial Agnaktor live, does not have a source that will affect its mechanic, like lava, nor are the players able to harden the parts through ice weapons. This ultimately makes burrowing its only function for gaining its armor. Glacial Agnaktor's combat is a tad harder to deal with, as the only part that is weak at all times is its chest. This forces with certain weapons to try facing or hugging the chest while the armor is on, which puts the player in a more precarious situation due to losing the ability to dodge its large radius attacks. It becomes less pressing when the armor is inactive or destroyed, opening up safer positioning options. Not all subspecies are treated with a fresh coat of paint, but the ones that are make for an exceptional fight that could potentially change how you fight a monster despite its base counterpart. Equipment is one of the key cornerstones of Monster Hunter's design. Armor and weapons created from the unique properties of the monsters make for a compelling reason to hunt more monsters. Just as subspecies differ in appearance, so too does the equipment made from them. Armor will have different skill combinations, while weapons can have different stats. Examples of differing armor skills are the Rathalos species. And as for the weapons, nearly every subspecies can count. The design philosophy behind skill combinations assigned to armor sets are created with one or more ideals. Sets can have skill combinations that assist with extracurricular activities, help fight a particular monster or type of monster, have skills that mirror the biology of the monster, made to work in tandem with the weapon created from the monster, made to work specifically for a weapon type, or the skill combination leans heavily into a gimmick. Obviously, it wouldn't necessarily be unique if subspecies just made the same armor. Which brings us to Rathalos. Excluding Frontier and Online, Rathalos has 2 subspecies and 2 title-exclusive variants. The latter of the 2 we'll be ignoring. Base Rathalos armor always grants attack up in every generation, while shuffling around whether or not it will have a sharpening skill, fire attack up, and sometimes weakness exploit. This might be the design due to Rathalos being attack-based, while Rathian has more base health, hence her health and recovery skills on armor. Azure Rathalos is the subspecies of Rathalos that is nearly identical to its base form, but its mechanics and resistances are different. A frustrating aspect to Azure Rathalos is its ability to stay airborne longer and stronger wind pressure. So much so that some of its attacks and combos are reliant on incapacitating you before striking. Its armor is usually set up with critical eye and a defensive skill like earplugs or wind resistance. Not sure what the critical eye is about, but those defensive skills come in handy against not just Rathalos, but other monsters of a similar ilk. Silver Rathalos is the significantly more powerful rare species that has an incredibly tough hide but weaker legs and wings. This plays a huge role in its combat and reflects in the skills present on his armor. Since Silver Rath's debut, the skills present on the armor are always sharpness related, with Monster Hunter G having ESP, which prevents bouncing, and sharpness, which reduces the amount of sharpness lost when attacking. Later down the line, the armor skills have changed to be a mix of sharpness and damaging skills, whether it's raw, critical, and/or elemental. When it comes to weapons, they follow a tree depending on the material or monster on the particular branch. Monster subspecies, like those of Rathalos, generally follow along a singular tree, progressing from the standard red Rathalos to sometimes the azure, and finishing as silver. What changes are the stats and the materials used to upgrade them. Some weapons branch, like that of Rajang and its variant, where the base Rajang weapon is separate from the Furious. The difference between these two is more than just visual, as the raw, element, sharpness, affinity, decoration slots, shelling, file types, and ammunition can all be different. All of these unique combinations are relative to the monster and its subspecies, allowing for different forms of equipment with skills that can spice up both full and mixed sets, even if there are metamancers who won't use them. Lastly, I just want to say that having subspecies in the base game could certainly provide a hefty amount of replayability. Yes, the surface level ideal is more monsters, more battles, but it's compounded into different aspects. Crown farming, completing every weapon of a particular type, or every weapon in general, and even crafting all the armor sets are among the most common activities for progression and post-game player activities. A game could feel bloated if there's a ton of content on launch, but the bloat can be beneficial if handled correctly. Story-driven games, like World and Wilds, could suffer from many monsters only if the player is forced to encounter them. Older Monster Hunter games didn't increase the number of key quests in order to showcase their subspecies. Instead, they provided hunts against base form monsters and left the choice to hunt their subspecies to the player if the subspecies wasn't a key quest itself. And normally, if the subspecies is a key quest, the base monster usually isn't. This certainly promotes a desire to either deal with the content in the moment or revisit it at a later time. For those who know the pain of farming for gems or mantles, you have the option to choose how you want to spend that time. Base species are easier to deal with but have the lowest percentage chance to obtain a material. Subspecies are harder but offer increased chance at rare materials, albeit at usually a minimal increase, but what really matters is the freedom of choice. All in all, subspecies can offer a refreshed take on a previously established monster by boosting their performance in combat, their contribution to the equipment system, and the value they add to replayability. Maybe 4 Ultimate being my first Monster Hunter spoiled me, because how in the world were Gold and Silver Rath's base game content for stories but ended up being a title update for stories too? It doesn't make any sense. Either way, if you enjoyed this video, why not try out my other bi-weekly uploads featuring topics like part breaks and status ailments? But remember, Black Diablos is technically not a subspecies. Until next time.